Okay. This is kind of a surprise live. Usually I do my lives at the end of the week, but here we are. It's Wednesday. I'm so excited to be on today. Great. I see my face. That means I'm on. Well, let's get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm Josie Warren. I am the autoimmune expert, and welcome to my channel. This is a channel of health and permanent healing of autoimmune diseases and of chronic illnesses. Now, first, for the new viewers out there, I need you to know a little bit about me, and I want to share some of myself with you. What I want you to know about me is I know intimately what it's like to live day to day, year after year, decade after decade with autoimmune diseases and also chronic illnesses. My first autoimmune disease was rheumatoid arthritis. It happened 6 months after the loss of my dad. And after that, it seemed like every about year to 2 years, I was developing a new autoimmune disease or a new chronic condition. You know, whether that was anxiety, depression, an eating disorder, food allergies, chronic candida, into Hashimoto's, into Graves' disease, into lupus, into Raynaud's and multiple sclerosis, and CVID. And by the time I was 28, I was a licensed therapist, but I was a complete mess, both emotionally, but most importantly in my health. And I had an awareness that, again, by the time I started getting MS, that clearly all the food diets, the supplements, the specialists, the thousands and thousands of dollars I was spending seeking treatment and a cure for my conditions, none of it was working. I kept getting worsening conditions. I kept getting sick. And that's when I was led to a new life center by a practitioner. And it was here that I learned for the first time that it was me, and humbly, it was my emotional state that was unknowingly creating all of the dysregulation in my body that was creating all of my autoimmune diseases, chronic conditions, and keeping me unable to heal. That it had nothing to do with the toxins or the foods or the Epstein-Barr virus that I had had in high school or my genetics and predisposition. It was me. And here I learned how to emotionally handle my life. My body permanently healed in about 3 months, and I am 10 years completely healed. I have no autoimmune diseases, no chronic illnesses, and no, I'm not in remission. I'm permanently healthy, and I take no supplements or medication or food diets, and this is what we do here at a New Life Center. This is the same journey I take all my students down, and it is why I am here sharing with you today. And so the topic of today's video is God's plan and your health explained. Now, the inspiration for this video is oftentimes when I meet with individuals for program consultations, I get a question. Understandably, they ask me in terms of the program, is our program religiously based? And I always share that no, while our program is not religiously based, what I find is for those of us like myself that believe in God, what happens when we heal our health conditions, that process is the process of reconnecting with ourself. And when we reconnect back to ourself, this beautiful thing happens. We reconnect back to God. And that truly God is an integral part, again, for those of us that believe, of our healing processes. And he sure has been for mine. And I will share more of my story later today. So what I know as my truth and the truth of humans is that God designed us to be healthy. He designed us to be happy. He designed us as humans to have a fulfilling life and a life of purpose. And by the time individuals such as myself find our way here to a New Life Center, we have had a life of illness. We have had a life of pain. And it is through these experiences that the voice of God and our relationship with God has become fractured. His voice becomes quiet. It's like unknowingly we cut the phone line to God. And here's the beautiful thing, that when we heal physically, we reconnect to ourself, and we reconnect that phone line to God. And you will find, and what we find is that God is right there, always had been, waiting for us to reconnect. And as we heal our physical body in the reconnection of ourselves, God begins to grow stronger and stronger in each of us as we grow stronger and stronger within ourselves. Now, this relationship with God, this understanding with God, this strength of God in each of us as we physically heal, it doesn't come from anything we can read. It's not part of the Bible, actually. This experience is within each of us, and it's a deeply personal experience. It's an intimate and unique relationship that each of us begin to have with God once again, just as He designed. Now, before we get started, I want to share a little bit about my story. I'm going to share the beginning, and at the end, I'm going to share where I am now. Now, I was raised in the Catholic Church, and I never once as a child doubted the presence and the truth of God. I knew God was real. I could feel Him. I could experience His love. I truly could feel the warmth of Him as a small child walking right beside me. From the youngest age, I knew Him and I knew His support. But something happened, and I know that I'm not alone in this experience. That as I went through the challenges of life, as I lost pets and then grandparents, and I lost my dad, and I lost friends, and I started to experience the lonely feelings of life, and the feelings of loss, and the feelings of pain, and the wondering why. Why was this happening? Why was this happening to me? That this wasn't what I thought was God's path in the human experience. Well, the voice of God, the presence of God in my life became quieter and quieter and thinner until by the time I was in the thick of my autoimmune diseases in my 20s, I still prayed. And I prayed every night. But instead of feeling like I was talking to God and that He was right here, it felt like my prayers were going out into the vast, dark emptiness, unanswered. Where was God? I thought God had forgotten about me. To all those out there, I'm just feeling, I still remember the aloneness that I felt and the confusion that I felt. And as time went on, the pain grew inside of me, and I grew bitter. And I admittedly started to blame God for what had happened in my life. Why was I at 20, in my 20s, but supposed to be the best years of my life, dying? Why was I growing so sick? Why did I keep getting these illnesses? Why did the people that loved and supported me, why did they have to die? What had I done, God? Had I forsaken Him in some kind of way? You know, I couldn't believe that the God that I knew at a young age had crafted this life of suffering for me. Where was God? I couldn't hear Him. And so what I want you to know is that God wants each of us to be the best we can be. And now I'm speaking about this in my healing. That God wants us to be self-actualized as humans. And what that means is that self-actualization is growing through life's challenges to be the best version of who we are. And to self-actualize, we have to allow God to guide us. God has a specific plan for each of us, and it's called God's plan. Now, in God's plan, we learn and we grow from what God intentionally puts in our life, the intentional challenges and the hardships that we get to view as opportunities. This is God's plan. This is in stark opposition to where I had found myself, which is being a victim to God and his plan. Feeling that he is unfairly testing us, that he has forsaken us, or that he has forgotten about us. There are no unhealthy people that believe in and follow God's plan. God's plan has the purpose for us to learn and grow. God's plan is the plan for us to self-actualize, to be the best version of ourselves. And what God's plan, following God's plan, creates is for us a life of us being inherently healthy. That's the outcome of following God's plan. We are healthy. And next, what is unhealthy? This is the opposite of God's plan. Unhealthy is looking at the losses, the hardships, the challenges, and the experiences of our life, of our human existence. It's choosing to view them as tragic, choosing to look at our losses and our challenges as traumatic and as trauma, thinking that what we go through is unique to us, that is different or special or harder, and that believing that each of us as humans has the right to determine how hard our losses are and to hold on to the pain for as long as we want to. This is living life in camp victim. We can never be following God's plan when we are living in camp victim. Camp victim is the most disempowering place we can live from. It's the perspective we see, the lens we see and view all of our world through. And please know, when I was living in camp victim, I was adamant that that wasn't me. But if I'm really honest, how I really felt, I felt that life was happening to me. I felt that God had put things in my path that were unfair. I was scared of the next hardships around the corner. And my life felt completely out of control and out of my control. One hard thing happening after the next. A life of pain. In camp victim, it is the breeding ground for all illness and disease. So, how do you know that you are on God's plan? You know you are following God's plan when you feel good about yourself. When we have confidence in ourselves, we feel optimistic about our future. We feel good about life, and most importantly, we know and trust life is a good place with overwhelmingly wonderful and warm, loving people, and that life out here, the life that God created that we live in, that it supports us. And we are able to look at life's challenges when we're following God's plan. We look at them as an opportunity God has given us to be resilient, to bounce back and to grow stronger from the adversities, from the losses, from the unexpected changes of life, and to grow back and to learn from these experiences. And in this learning and growing, we build confidence in ourselves. And we start to give thanks for the very life that we have, that kind of imperfect mess of a wonderful life that we have. And most importantly, you can know you're following God's plan when you're really honest with yourself and you know that you don't want a different life, that you don't wish for a different life. You want your life because your life is the life that God crafted specifically and uniquely for you, to teach all of us the exact lessons that we need to learn in this lifetime, even when it is challenging, even when it feels painful, even when it involves loss and loss of our loved ones. My life, I know, is specifically crafted in God's plan. And here's also how you'll know you're following God's plan. When you start to follow God's plan again, God shows up. You can feel him strong, and he is walking right beside you as you follow the plan, the loving plan that he devised for you. Now, when we're not following God's plan, well, we feel we need to be in control of our life, kind of that tight grip at all times. Deep down, below the story we tell ourselves and others, when we're not following God's plan, we feel like life is a burden. And I sure did. I did. That life was hard. That this is a life that is happening to us, that it's a life outside of our control. In this place of not following God's plan, we feel small in life, and minuscule and unimportant. We feel stuck. And I feel that God has forgotten us. He forgot about us. He passed us over, and that he has forsaken us. We feel when we're not following God's plan that we got the wrong life. That it's a life of hardship, it's a life of struggle, and it's a life of not living up to the potential that we knew God instilled in us at our birth. And here's what happened. This was where I was at. This was where I was when I came to a New Life Center. And would I have told someone that? Absolutely not. I would have told them the rehearsed story of course, I believe in God and he's here and he hears me. And that's not how I really felt. A life of loss and pain and 8 autoimmune diseases? Absolutely not. I was angry at God, if I'm honest, and I felt that he had worked against me. Where was God? Where was he in my life? And what happened for me, this was the most unexpected and the greatest gift of coming here to a New Life Center 10 years ago, where I just kind of blew in with the wind, all ragged and torn and beat up of years in pain and suffering. And most importantly, years of my health breaking down. As I took our course. I took our course here because I couldn't stand feeling the way I was feeling anymore. I was at the bottom of my life, and I couldn't imagine my health getting any worse. I knew I wanted to live, and I wasn't going to if I didn't have a huge intervention. But the most amazing thing happened for me is as my body healed, and that's really why I came here, I healed emotionally. And I started to feel myself again. And I started to feel my heart and my heart energy again. And then the most profound experience, no one told me I would get to feel God again. And I reconnected to my relationship with God. Now, what does God's plan look like? And this is very important. I used to want to think God's plan when I was a child was going to be the straight line up. And as I got older, I was actually hoping it would be a straight line across. No challenges, no struggles, just the same and predictable. Here's what I now know. God's plan looks like the mountains. It looks like this. Always getting higher as we hike up the mountains of life, but it's also full of valleys. And that end point of the up and down journey of life, which is actually God's plan, is our why. Our why. And we all have to have a why in our life. And my why is living God's plan for me. And the truth of God's plan, it's a human experience. It's that we go through challenges and losses, and that as I go through those, I'll fall back and down into the valley. And then I climb back up again by remembering that these challenges, these pains, these hardships, these unknowns are exactly what God has already designed and put into my path, because he knows that I need these learning lessons in this lifetime to learn, to become stronger, and to realize the truth of how I was made and who I am. And that this all happens from the falling down and the getting back up and continuing forth. Again, trusting and knowing this is God's plan for us. It is through this that we realize our strengths and potentials. And this experience is we live in camp, take responsibility instead of camp victim. And camp take responsibility. I trust fully in God's plan for me. I take my hands off the death grip of control of my life, and I let God lead me. I trust his plan for me. I use what he puts forth to be my best, to find the strengths in myself that I couldn't have found on my own. And in this, I become the best version of myself. And when I am the best version of myself, I know I am following God's plan. And for me, now following God's plan, I can now look back in retrospect and see everything had to happen in my life exactly as it did, that it was all God's plan, that I actually had to have those 8 autoimmune diseases by the time I was 28. I had to have my life completely fall apart. I had to be on that kind of death's door and at that hopeless, forgotten place, that really dark and cold existence, that I had to give up my therapy practice, that my dad had to die when I was in high school. I had to have that learning lesson. I had to go through some really hard struggles and challenges in my life and make some really poor choices when I was a young adult, to wake up, to realize that this is what humans go through, and to make a different choice. All of that had to lead me here, that I wouldn't be here speaking to you today, passionate about my purpose to wake up the human capacity that God designed in us to heal ourselves, had I not been sick. I would have just had some kind of life, right? So I know inherently that everything I went through, even all of my illnesses, all of my losses, has been God's plan. And I'm going to share something with you today. I'm going to come out today. I haven't shared this yet with any of you, that one of the greatest gifts of following God's plan, I think this is very vulnerable for me to share. It's time. One of the greatest gifts of following God's plan is that now I actually can have conversations with God, that I actually talk to God now, and I hear him and he answers right back, that I can actually feel him. And I'll be quite frank, I can actually feel him right here with me, kind of enveloping me as I am sharing this to you all right now. And that I've learned that God is a man. He is actually a real person. He's not an idea, and he's not this kind of ethereal thing. And he has a real personality. He has a sense of humor. He has an unconditional love that I feel from him. And he has an understanding that I feel God's support with me every day and every moment, that I continue to support myself and to follow his plan. And he guides me. And he'll let me know if I'm getting a little off track. And he lovingly supports me through all of my challenges and my missteps. And he doesn't judge me. And I think the most important thing to know is that I realize is that God has been here. God has been here. And what he wants me to share with you all today is that he is here for all of us. That he doesn't selectively speak to the canonized saints or to the Pope. That he is actually waiting to speak and to have conversations with each of you and all of us humans. And that he's been waiting a very long time. And that we have to reconnect with ourselves and heal ourselves for us to then talk with him, and that he can't wait to support each of us in the greatness of all of our lives. And he also wants us to know that no, he didn't design us to be sick and unhealthy. He goes, that's the device of what happens in our mind. He didn't design us this way, and that his plan is laid out as us as healthy as well. And so I just want to share that with you, that this gift that I have to talk with God and to feel him and know him in my life in a very experiential way, in a very real and a very personal way, is there for all of us. And that God is waiting right here next to you, with the phone line connected. And he wants each of us to answer and know that answering God is the choice to come back to and to answer ourselves and to come back to ourselves once again. This is the journey of health and healing. This is the journey of following God's plan. So this today is God's plan and your health explained. That God is a part of our lives if we welcome him in, and we welcome God into our life when we are living our life connected to ourselves, trusting God's plan for us, learning and growing through the challenges that God has designed, that specific course of life that he has designed for us, and to know that he is there, a loving Father supporting us every step of the way, and that his love shines for each of us. No, he has not forgotten. I just want to thank you all so much for joining me today. I want to thank a couple of very special viewers of my channel. A shout out to Eric in particular. Thank you so much for encouraging me to share more about my relationship with God and about God in our lives. Thank you, and to thank you to a number of others here who encouraged me. I came out today to share my experience, and I will keep sharing God's message for each of us and God's plan. It's a very important part of my life, and it's something about myself that I want each of you to know. And if you're out there and you are like I was, and you feel disconnected to God, and you have an autoimmune disease or a chronic illness, and you want to heal, and you know God's there, and that sound has just become a little dimmer and a little quieter, and you know that if the journey lies within you, then we have 2 courses so that you can permanently heal and reconnect to yourself, and they will reconnect you to the truth and your relationship with God. And that is our 13-week online educational programs. We have the autoimmune healing program and the chronic illness healing program. And while these programs, I said, are not religiously based, if you believe in God, he will show up and he will be your biggest supporter through this healing journey. And then as you walk forth in your life outside of this course, permanently healed, you'll also be walking on God's plan, and he'll be walking right beside you. And if you are interested in this for yourself or a loved one, I have a link down below to apply for a complimentary course consultation with me. Please know I would love to meet you. Again, I am completely healed. I have no autoimmune diseases or illnesses. I am following God's plan, and this is the path that the individuals who come through our course follow and go on as well. All right, everyone, thank you so much for letting me share with you today. I'm going to hop over to the comment section before I get started. Oh my goodness, wow. Thank you so much, everyone. I have such an active comment section today. Who knew? Wednesday afternoon. Oh, thank you, Timotes. I hope I said that correctly. Thank you so much. Greetings to you from Poland. Oh, I love that you checked this before you went to bed. Yep. Thank you, Mark, saying too, character cannot be built without trial. I believe that 100%, that the trials, the challenges that are actually the opportunities that God has given us to become that best version of ourselves. Oh, beautiful. And yep, he does. He wants us to be healthy. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yep, so that we can fulfill our purpose here. Amen. Amen to that. That is the truth. We have to wake up to the reality that God is here. God is waiting for us. We have to want to hear him. We have to want to be healed. We have to want to be healthy, and he wants that for us. And what I didn't understand, I thought the pathway to healing was kind of through God, like God would create the healing. No, God designed us to create the healing in ourselves. And when we heal using what God has already created within us, then we can walk forth in our relationship with God and on his path and his purpose for us. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Again, and thank you for the wonderful support. It means a lot to me. I'm going to probably have some more feelings to feel. This was a vulnerable video for me to do today, but you've inspired me to share more. So thank you so much. My heart's very happy.